Hi, and welcome back to the Miss Clarke's Class channel. In recent Science Night chapters, we've seen both Julie and Robbie work on their science fair projects. With Science Night quickly approaching, let's see how things are going in Class 5B. Chapter 19 is called Week of Observations and is narrated by Julie. If you have your own copy of Science Night, we are on page 84. Just like that, another school week is almost complete. Each morning I nail my weather reports. This morning I decided to try something new to keep my reports interesting. As I walk to the front of the class while holding the school's rain gauge, I say, "Can I please have an assistant?" Several kids immediately raise their hands, including Robbie and Mary Sue. In that moment, I realize how comfortable I now feel in front of my classmates. All eyes are on me and my knees aren't buckling, my voice isn't shaking, and I actually enjoy being front and center. Robbie and I lock eyes as he whispers, "Pick me, pick me." "Robbie, will you please help me take this morning's rainfall report?" I say in my best teacher voice. He is out of his seat and next to me before I even finish my sentence. "Of course, Meteorologist Julie," he says in his perfect news anchor voice. "What do we have here? It appears to be a rain gauge that can hold several inches. Is that correct?" "Sure is, Robbie," I answer as if we practiced this skit. "I'd like you to tell the class how much rainwater is in the inner tube. You can tell by reading the ruler etched on the side of the cylinder." "You mean this ruler here?" he says as he points to the inner tube. "That's the one," I answer. Robbie squats down to peer into the rain gauge. He makes a puzzled expression, turning back to the class so he can get a few laughs. His acting is so good, I almost start laughing, but I manage to hold it together. "I'd say 0.31 inches. Is that right?" he asked. "That's correct." "Want to guess how much fell at my house?" I ask. "That exact amount," he confidently guesses. "None," I say. "Not a drop." "How can that be?" he asks. "Well, yesterday's storms formed pretty much right over the school and then moved inland. The storm never passed over my house," I explain. "Fascinating," Robbie says. "Are the reports between your house and the school always different?" "I'm glad you asked, Robbie. I now have nearly 2 full weeks of rainfall measurements at both school and my house, and they have never received the same amount of rain. The more observations I take, the more questions I have about rainfall variability." At this moment, I realize I just lost my audience. "Julie," Miss Clarke says, "why don't you explain what rainfall variability means?" "I'd love to know," Robbie says while rubbing his chin. I feel myself getting nervous, and I drop the rain gauge full of water all over the floor. My heart starts racing, and I turn bright red. Robbie quickly grabs a roll of paper towels and starts soaking up the spilt water. "Good thing we already took that reading, Meteorologist Julie," he says as the class laughs. I take a deep breath and lock eyes with Robbie. He turns his back to the class so only I can see his face. He says softly, "It's okay, you got this." My heart stops racing and I say, "Rainfall variability refers to the differences in rainfall across an area." I take another deep breath. "For example, even though I live close to the school, that doesn't necessarily mean when it is raining here that it will be raining at my house." Wanting to stay a part of the skit, Robbie asks, "How can that be? You live so close to the school." I ask that same question. It turns out the weather is always changing. Storms are forming and falling apart constantly, which can result in different rain amounts even across a small area. The more observations we take, the more questions we can answer. "Boy, I sure would like to help and have one of these rain gauges at my house," Robbie says. "Thank you, Julie and Robbie," Miss Clarke says as she walks to the front of the classroom. "You're absolutely right. The more of us that contribute to the daily weather puzzle, the more we can learn about weather." Robbie and I look at each other and can't help but laugh. I'm so glad I chose him to be my assistant. Mary Sue wouldn't have been nearly as fun and would have been mad I spilt water on her. So that's it for chapter 19. It was a fun chapter where we got to see Julie and Robbie interact again. They make quite the team. And although Julie was flooded with nervousness after she dropped the rain gauge, with Robbie's support, she was able to recover and finish the presentation. Let's see what happens next. Chapter 20 is called Flashback Friday and is narrated by Robbie. If you have your own copy of Science Night, we're on page 90. Julie and I just made a touchdown, followed by an extra point. It's like I could read her mind and knew just what she needed me to say during her weather report. Even Miss Clarke loved it. As we walk back to our seats, Miss Clarke says, "Now that we all have our critical thinking caps on, I'd like everyone to pull out a blank sheet of paper for a Flashback Friday assignment." Mary Sue's hand shoots up immediately. "Yes, Mary Sue," Miss Clarke says. "Do you want us to tell you about our absolute favorite memory? I have a lot of them, so it's going to be hard to choose just one. But maybe I should write about my recent haircut," she says. "Or you could write about that time you watched Julie and me give an awesome weather report," I say to her as she pretends to ignore me. "I'm sure you have tons of wonderful memories to share, Mary Sue, and maybe what I ask you to share today will be one of those experiences," Miss Clarke says with a smile. "Now, class," she continues, "you have been working hard on your science projects, and with Science Night next week, you need to start organizing your thoughts and forming a conclusion. I'd like you to think about your research and what it was like to conduct an experiment. Then write a paragraph or two about your experience and what you have learned." I pull out a blank sheet of paper as Miss Clarke walks back to her desk and sits down. I look around the silent classroom. Some kids are already writing while others look completely lost, some even terrified. Julie is already on her second paragraph. How is that even possible? Mary Sue breaks the silence and says, "That was an easy assignment, Miss Clarke." "I'll take that as you're all done, Mary Sue. Let's remain quiet for those who are still working," Miss Clarke says. Finally, I write Operation Field Goal Kick at the top of my paper and look around the classroom again. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. For some reason, I can't get Mary Sue's comment about sharing my favorite memory out of my head. Maybe it's because spending the day with Daniel at the park, field goal kick after kick, is one of my favorite memories. I open my eyes and start writing about how we found Daniel's field goal kick sweet spot. So that's it for chapter 20. I like that in recent chapters, we've gotten to see that Robbie isn't just a goofball. He's caring, he's sensitive, and he's a good friend. With only 3 chapters left, Science Night is quickly approaching. Make sure you click to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and turn on that notification bell. Until next time, class dismissed.